I was seduced by a siren, a modern day siren, a beautiful creature of the deep. A few years ago I had hopes, dreams, and the world was my oyster, but for some reason I decided to look into a puddle. A small puddle, a glistening pothole that was positioned neatly in the corner of an alleyway. A beautiful flower grew from its cracks, a strange contrast to its solemn environment. I went down to pick it up. As I stepped away and examined its curves, a woman fluttered into my life. It started with a hello, and then a hug, then a kiss, then an embrace, and then it. She made me feel things I'd never felt before. Pure ecstasy, sexual bliss, a lustful dream straight from the depths of heaven. I'd been around the block, but this was a whole nother league. Something inhuman. It couldn't have been real. I left with my explosions of joy. My mind was overwhelmed with emotions. How could someone like this exist? It's like she had known my sexual need her entire life, and she was waiting for this moment to just emerge. But somehow it felt tainted by a subtle bad feeling that I playfully just tucked away. I soon ran back, and she was waiting. For the next couple of weeks she rewired my brain. I became addicted to her, and my lust for her. I started to put my goals aside, and she became my priority. It felt too good to walk away from. My goals could wait after all. I could leave at any time. And then one day, I saw the side of her I didn't want to see. I walked by that water-filled pothole I'd crossed so many weeks ago, but it had dried up. What was left was a dark, never-ending hole. I looked inside, and what I saw was a dark sea of men. Those men who had fallen, those who had given into her kisses, her embrace, her sickly love, and I saw how she fed off of them, like an animal. I looked away and I ran home. I tried not to think about it. That couldn't have been what I think it was. Surely she would not do the same to me. I was different. I had the control. But she wouldn't leave my mind. I told myself to be cautious. I told myself to proceed slowly, but something had already taken control. Like a puppeteer waking a mouth, the question came out of my mouth uncontrollably. Commit to me? She looked deep into my eyes as if I had been waiting for this moment. She then ruffled my hair, ran a finger down my neck, smiled and told me yes. I swear I saw a spark of something sinister cross her eyes before she looked away, but I ignored it. I rejoiced in my newfound passion. She was mine, and I was hers. We were hooked, together. As months went by, I fell deeper into her trance. Little by little her shiny scales began to shed, like a feather that had been splattered with mud. She was always right, and I was always wrong. I was always to blame, and she was always the victim. She walked all over me, yet rewarded me with pure ecstasy when I agreed. I didn't mind, because it was too good. Those soft hands, pulsating on me. She would ride me into the early hours, ever so softly. Nothing in my life had ever compared. She was a goddess in the bedroom, to be honest. I slowly came to realize she was training me like an animal. My treat was her warm embrace. It became my nirvana, my bliss, my world, and all I had to do to get it was listen. Year by year her power grew stronger. She became colder, more domineering, but this was no surprise to me. Deep down, I knew what she was, a creature from that dark hole, but I didn't care. Suddenly, I pushed away. I swam up, gasping for air. I climbed out and looked into a mirror. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I was covered in hair oil and crusty grime. I couldn't flake it off. I had lost my dreams, my purpose, and my goals. What had I become? I'd become a part of her, but I was too scared to look away. She whispered in my ear that it could all be gone in a flash. She had a list of other men waiting for her. I crawled back in, hopeless. Envy rained on me every single day as I saw other men walk by, oblivious to the hole I had fallen into. She could take any one of them, but no one else could have her. She was mine, so I gave her everything. And I lost myself. Then one day, on a full moon, I saw a light. I don't know how it reached me, but it seeped in. It was foggy, blurry, some kind of omen. It told me that I needed to leave, now, before the feeling wore off. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but I decided to listen. I climbed out of that damned hole, and I ran. She followed me, like a fish out of water. I looked back, and I saw her in her truest form. an aged siren, a hellish creature from the deep, with no purpose but to feed. I ran as far as I could. She began to fade in the distance, and now I scraped that crusty grime off my soul. Little by little, day by day, I feel like I'm emerging from a sick dream. A month later, I saw a new victim fall into that hole, and I couldn't help but feel sorrow. But there was nothing I could do. It was time to look inward. What happened to me? How did I fall so deeply into that place of lust? I realised it was because of fear. My fear of pursuing my dreams. My fear of disappointing. My fear of failure. I now have no choice but to pursue that dream, relentlessly and fearlessly, because the alternative is back in that hole, watching me and waiting for me.